Welcome back to the asiatechpodcast. I'm Gustavo Liu, and I'm today's host with Alan Go from NDR Medical Technology Private Limited. That is the company.
Yeah, hi. Sorry for
Hi,
the name
Alan.
being a bit long, but yes, you can just call us NDR in short.
NDR, like your shirt.
Yeah. I mean, we
Yeah.
then definitely have to wear something nicer and appropriate for the company to be on the podcast.
No, but it's good, and I was actually very interested to find out about your logo because it does look like it has sort of like a cross, right? Could you just tell us a little bit about how you designed the logo?
Oh, the design was actually we've gone through a few rounds of iteration in terms of the design. The first logo doesn't definitely look like this, but so far, if you look at the logo clearly, there's like digital spots, like
Yeah.
AI nodes that we connected everything together.
Oh,
But in
right.
actual fact, there's a lot of study that we go into designing this logo. I mean, I unfortunately I can't pull out a slide for you to show how we actually design it. There's
Yeah.
actually like a middle S and S in between the lines, so it's like a surgical surgery,
Oh, right,
safe
right.
surgery, or SS
And it kind of
kind
looks
thing.
like a brain.
Yeah, it kind of look like a brain. So you can call it AI, you can call it electronics, nodules. You can call it the hidden word like I mentioned, safe surgery or something. This what represent the company is actually doing.
I love it. I love it. So, Alan, you are in the medical field. You are medtech, right? And you are also doing AI within it. It's probably two of the hottest sort of topic today, kind of put together. And obviously, there's a lot of demand for this area on the medical field for innovation, and a lot of the practices kind of look for disruption. I want to start a little bit to understand about your motivation. I mean, you founded the company back in what, 2015?
It started off with late 2014.
How
Yeah.
did it start?
In actual fact, I mean I'm the co-founder. Me myself and my co-founder Jason. We actually started off about 15 years ago. We get to know each other in our first job. We are from A-Star DSI, and from then on, we are so excited about design development, serving the industry, and we have wanted to spin off as a company on a whole. So we have been harboring this idea for the last 15 years. Yes, and
So you sat on it for 15 years.
no, we wanted to start something. So we have
Okay.
ventured into a couple of things, but never really gone very serious into it. It's just that in 2014, whereby I'm quite exposed to the ecosystem in startups in the medical field as well. So I roped Jason back into the team saying that, hey, you know what? Let's do something very interesting. We are engineers and we should do something for the long run for the medical field. I think there's a very good prospect in what we probably could develop in.
Yeah.
So we actually found doctors, get the problem statement sort of validated. And with that, actually, we applied for some of the government grants. And that's how we kickstart everything.
So you kind of went back to the doctors and you asked them what is the major pain points and what are the sort of issues they were facing. Did you start off like, was it, did you have an idea already in mind, or was it more like a broad sort of let's explore and see which are the worthwhile solving pain points?
No, we actually stumbled onto this by doing a lot of research, like what are the main pain points that hasn't been resolved. We come up with some initial ideas of using robotics for percutaneous access.
Yeah.
So we validate this solution with one of our key principal investigator from Tan Tock Seng Hospital in the start.
Yep.
And fortunately, after a while of doing trials together, I'm happy to say the doctor actually invested in the company as well.
Oh, wow. But did the idea start off by looking at precision for surgeries?
Yes. It all started off with understanding that it's very difficult for doctors to do a percutaneous puncture, even though it's image guided, but because you need a lot of hand-eye coordination. And
Yeah.
generally, not even talking about surgeons, a lot of people is not that good at it.
Oh my God, that's like flashback to Doctor Strange, where he had. Have you seen that movie where he had that accident and he had to like had this hand precision thing and perform like very accurate
Correct.
surgery?
Yeah, for Doctor Strange, I mean that movie is great. I mean, but definitely it showcased a lot of like hand-eye coordination, a lot
Yeah.
of surgery. Whether is it good or whether is it even possible, it depends on the skill set of the doctors, and it's very difficult to replicate unless you are that good. So right now, what we are trying to do is to develop some surgical robotic system
Yeah.
that sort of mimic or trying to learn from the best surgeon in the world, and that could translate down to helping other surgeons, helping other clinicians in terms of performing the surgery to a certain minimum level of care that they can provide. So, in one of the motto or the mantra for the company is that with our robotic system, we hope that every hospital in the world could be a good hospital.
A great hospital.
Yeah, a great hospital.
And I think it is so important because gone are the days where you will go to the doctor. I mean, you want to trust your doctor, right? But doctors are human beings too, and a lot of especially in the surgery area, there's a lot of mistakes that tend to happen, and could be life threatening at times as well. Both on the area, I mean, we also work with other startups that are doing surgical sort of solutions, but they're looking more on the areas of minimizing mistakes in terms of sewing a cotton inside the body or leaving a Caesar inside somebody else's, those pictures on Google. But you guys are actually targeting directly at the precision to make it more accurate when you're targeting a particular spot, right?
Yeah. In short, yes, that's correct. But of course, I definitely would like to share most of the doctors or most of the surgeons that we are working with, or we have seen, or currently we haven't come in contact with. All doctors are actually quite good at what they do.
Yeah.
I mean, they have been doing this for the last 10 over years.
Of
They are
course.
all good. It's just that what we see in terms of the gap is that, I mean, a lot of things that we are doing nowadays are technology driven. We can help them to be even better. If, like, say I want to draw a similarity, if it's like you are a craftsman, you can craft things pretty nicely.
Yeah.
But in actual fact, even if I'm not good with my hand art, I can use machine, I can use robot, I can use like CNC machine to produce a very nice artwork as well. So what we are doing here is to sort of bridge the gap. So doctors, even though they are good, we can help them to be more productive, or we can help them in terms of reduce the number of radiation exposure, or
Well,
have
the
more
example that I
productivity.
use a lot is, would it be reasonable for me to go when I see my doctor and expect my doctor to have all the latest cure and the latest solutions and the latest medicine that is available around the world? No, but I would expect my doctor to empathize with my discoloration of my skin and how much pain I'm suffering. But I would expect him or her to be assisted by somebody or something that would be able to provide some of the best treatments around the world. And this is where I see a lot of the latest innovation. It's not so much about trying to overtake those roles, but it's to empower them with better services so that they can, save more lives.
Yeah. That's definitely the way you put it across is definitely correct, because right now we are trying to develop the thing as an assistive tools to the surgeons. We are trying to make them better, but definitely not to replace them, because we still believe that the human approach is very important, because machines at this current stage, or for the next 5 to 10 years, I think we are still more comfortable working with surgeons.
You have
and
to.
Yeah, we
right?
have to.
They are the people that have been for centuries have been liaising with people, and people trust another human being.
Correct. That's
Otherwise, it'll
definitely
be like a whole new level of like education, right? That you have to try to convince people.
Yeah, so I would advise all other startups, stop replacing doctors. They are important to us.
Yeah, that's very important. We see time and time again where founders come and they said, "Oh, I want to replace such and such and such," whether be it advertisement or advertising agencies or banking or medical field. And it's not always the case, because you want to be able to empower those professionals so they can be good at what they do, and at the same time having access to everything, all the tools and all the knowledge that is available out there, right? And that is the difference, I think, where innovation and disruption come in place. Do you really need that much disruption when you can sow the fruits from innovation?
Yeah, that's right.
So I want to refer a little bit about your deck, because I saw something really interesting where you talked about disrupting, well, not disrupt, but like robot-assisted surgery, right? And in this area, you talk about there's 9.6 million cancer deaths. I know Singapore has a very high rate of cancer, especially, and please prove me if I'm wrong, female woman with breast cancer rate seems to be higher here in Singapore? Is that the common sort of trend that you're seeing?
Right now, based on the statistics that I've put up, actually is based on WHO. 9.6 million cancer deaths is worldwide, not just in Singapore itself. Breast cancer, as you correctly point out, is definitely one of the top killers in Singapore. But if you talk about the general population, because it affects women,
Yeah.
definitely more so than men.
Yeah.
So it's not one of the main killer for Singaporeans.
So what would be the main kinds of cancer? Is it lung cancer, or are we looking at other forms of cancer here in Singapore?
The top 5 cancer definitely includes lung, breast, or some other indication, which I mainly, because I'm not I'm not a medical doctor, so it's very difficult for me to put up the statistics exactly for you. But definitely lung and breast cancer is the top killer in Singapore. But of course, other than cancer, it could be diabetics, it could be other problem that we might be facing, not just cancer alone.
Okay, interesting. Obviously lung cancer, a lot of it associated with tobacco.
Yes.
Or is it air? Like, say for example, certain countries have more bad air.
Based on the research and based on the survey that we sort of done, lung cancer is one of the top killer. Like I mentioned in my slides, if you are diagnosed with any form of lung cancer, the chances of survival is very minimal. 84.2% of the time is like almost confirmed you're gonna die from it.
Oh no. Depending on which stage, it's like you can't remove it at all.
Yeah, unfortunately, because most of the lung cancer is diagnosed at the later stage, and WHO actually did mention that if you are able to detect it, actually by the way of screening or by the way of regular checkups, or even with AI, that you can detect cancer at a much earlier stage, the survival rate will be much higher. But I touched on the point you mentioned about tobacco. Tobacco is definitely one of the main cause. I would say the main cause. But research has shown that the earth the pollution, the air that we are breathing in is another cause as well. So in places like probably in China, whereby there's more industrial, the cancer rate is going up as well. So in US and China, which amounts to most of the lung cancer cases we have seen. But very interestingly enough, while we are working with SGH and local hospitals, we have seen cases of women, non-smoker, getting lung cancer.
Like cancer, which is not unusual. Sometimes it's heritage, right? Like how if your family had it, it's in genetic passed along.
Yes and no, but the worrying part is an increasing number.
Okay.
It's not just like, our population is like 5.6 or 5.9 and the statistics is stagnant. No, it's increasing number of cases of lung cancer in women. And one of the research that was recently published by MOH was that it could be even possible because of like cooking oil or something.
My God.
And the worst part for non-smoker and women is that generally there isn't any symptoms till it's too late.
Yeah. Especially if it's in areas where it's not so visible. Like, for example, like now there are ways of teaching you, such as testicular cancer or breast cancer, you could actually feel it. But like lung cancer, you don't know until things are really bad.
Yeah. Typically, if you are a smoker, lung cancer symptoms could be like coughing out of blood, shortness of breath,
But that is much later, right? That by the time you start coughing blood, it's sort of like, what kind of stages are we looking at?
Typically, I would say I'm not a medical doctor, but I would say about stage 2 or stage 3. If your early symptoms occur much earlier, sometimes it could be catch on much earlier. But most of the time, not say most of the time, some of the time is being captured during your regular checkup when you do X-ray, or when they see some shadows in your lung, they will advise you to go for CT scans.
For deeper analysis. Can we talk a little bit about how you're solving this using AI technology? Because right now, this slide saying that the inaccuracy of how the doctors are currently, or even like human surgeries, is causing a lot of sort of mistakes, right? A lot of accidents.
Okay, based on my slide, I correct a little bit. It's not a mistake. They didn't say that doctors make mistakes. It's more like it's inaccurate. Sometimes when you do percutaneous puncture with a needle,
Yeah.
it's like shooting you're archery. You're trying to shoot an arrow to a bullseye, to a dot. Sometimes
To
you
a
just
cherry.
it's just or just a cherry or an apple. You just don't get to the target that you want to, even
Yeah.
though you can see it or even though it's image guided. So with such inaccuracy, nevertheless, if let's say you have a very small tumor or nodule within the lung, it's very difficult to puncture it, image guided.
Yeah.
Needless to say, to be confirmed or rest assured that whatever tissue sample that you actually extract from that nodule is correct. And even with the latest AI, sorry, other startups, please don't kill me. But even with the latest AI diagnostics or diagnosis whereby they take AI pathology,
Yeah.
whereby they smear the tissue samples on the glass plate and they view it through the microscope and they're trying to see what is the stage of the cancer. But unfortunately, rubbish in, rubbish out. If you don't get a correct sample at the right nodule core, you don't get the right staging of the cancer. So even for digital pathology, you require an accurate sample to be extracted through the biopsy in order to have a correct staging in terms of the cancer or the type of cancer, whether is it small cell or is it large cell cancer.
So at what stage is the AI, your AI right now, in comparison to like what is available out there?
This is a bit of a trade secret, but whatever I can share right now is that we are using AI in a very different manner because people have been asking us, a lot of people are doing AI. So what's so special about you? Like I mentioned, you have AI pathology, you have AI for video analytics, you have AI for a lot of things.
Image recognitions for AI for biometric.
Yeah. So actually, a lot of people, a lot of startups, or a lot of companies, a lot of big MNCs are going into the AI region. And to me, eventually, AI search, AI analytics will be somewhat like a Google search.
Yeah.
Yeah, eventually it will be sort of commoditized and it becomes so easily available that it's very difficult to market or sell as an item. And
But also like what kind
Sure.
of AI, right? Because then you've got
Correct,
like so
correct.
many different kind of AI and
Yeah.
all different stages, so it's different level.
Yeah.
A lot of confusion between machine learning, between what
Yeah,
AI is
yeah.
about what algorithm, smart matching algorithms are, and they all kind of people that don't understand AI categorize them all under AI as a big umbrella.
Correct. I mean, there's very variation. I mean, they could be as simple as just normal image recognition, and people can call it AI as well.
Exactly, yeah.
So what we are using AI, we are coupling it with a robotic device, and in research or in some of the surveys that we did, I mean, we understand that AI coupled with a device, coupled with a hardware, it makes commercialization a little bit easier, and the sticky effect of using your AI, I mean, it's going to be there. If it's just going to be a pure software play, it's easy replaceable. But if you have hardware and
Hardware,
the hospital,
software,
the hospital is already using your hardware, so the AI element is sort of
it's also a higher barrier to entry, right?
Because it's higher barrier of entry.
Deploying hardware is just so much like capital intensive, and just so many things could go wrong. But if you get it right, you got it. You got that market for yourself, right?
And like I mentioned, most of the company are using AI for accuracy, for determining probably the staging or trying to use image to sort of identify the cancer stage.
Yeah.
But we are using AI as more of a targeting tool. So the AI itself under the CT image or under MRI or under other form of image, we are able to locate and diagnose the tumor on site.
And then once it finds it, it just locks the position.
Yes, it locks the position. It sends coordinates to the robotic system, and we can accurately do the puncture. Sometimes, if you see whatever doctors can see right now, AI supposed to be able to replicate. But the way we see is even with different radiologies, even they view the same images, they might give a slightly different diagnosis.
Yeah.
So what we are trying to replace is we work with the best from Singapore General Hospital.
Yep.
And with that, we annotate the images and we are trying to learn from the best how they identify where is the core of the nodule. Because even if you can target the tumor, doesn't mean you hit the core.
Yeah.
I mean, even within the tumor itself, there is different grades of cancer cells.
And also like different angles that you have to target. targeted, right? All of those kind of have to take into account.
Yeah. So right now we are actually increasing the possibility of how doctors or how interventional radiologists are performing needle guidance. Previously, if let's say they are limited by CT guidance, they have to only puncture in a single phase, two-dimensional phase. But with our robotic system, actually we allow them to skew the angle of how they puncture. They no longer is limited by the 2D image slice, but it could cut across a few slices. And that will generally help them avoid a lot of ribs, errors, ribs, vessels, or arteries.
Which is the sensitive area because it could the wrong puncture could send somebody into coma.
Not just coma. I mean, there could be internal hemorrhage, or there could be pneumothorax. There could be so many other complications that is not seen. But traditionally, let me give a very short description of how is it performed right now.
Sure.
I'm not trying to scare everyone.
I saw that video, by the way, that you guys did with the news, was it Chinese News Asia or something, about Singapore bringing AI into China.
Okay.
And I think was you or one of your colleagues that did a demonstration of what traditional was.
No.
Or was that the journalist?
Yes, that's the journalist.
That's the journalist. Okay. Yeah. Wow. You guys actually let the journalists play with the machines, the technology.
Where we were in that video, I think you are talking about the one that we took in Nanjing, China, Nanjing, whereby it's an AI forum. I mean, we met up with the reporter. I mean, he was like, "Oh, interested what you are doing," and I was like trying to give a description of how we perform, and we brought a simulator over there, and within a very short description, he actually managed to capture what we are talking about. I was like, "Oh,
amazing!
How do you actually know about all this?" So he did mention that previously he covers
surgery, like the
healthcare in the healthcare area, and our device, we have made it so simple that a push of a button is all it requires. It doesn't require very complex training or understanding of the surgery in order to perform it. So we said, "Wow, okay, that's easy enough. Never mind, let me do it for you." So he just interviewed me based on what the system is about, and
he performed it himself.
Performed a good 1 minute of it is him performing the surgery, because whatever we have developed, we are not trying to produce another very complex solution so that doctors have very difficult for them to pick up. Probably you need 6 months before you can actually perform whatever is done. We are trying to make it as a smart system with AI, with a lot of control system, with a lot of technology. Actually, we made the alignment portion to as simple as just a push of a button.
But that is down to the core of how you are empowering doctors to do their jobs better.
That's right.
It's the same thing I ask a lot of developers. I ask them, where do you see the future of developers in the next 10 to 20 years? The ones that don't get it will often tell you, "Oh, there's going to be more programmers because with the rise of AI, with the rise of demand for technology, there's going to be a need for more people who can be, coders and software engineers." But that's not true. The future is so that my grandma will be able to create an app without knowing how to code, right? And the same thing, I would say that doctors, what do they do best? And leave those very precision type of surgery for equipments that are able to perform in a much larger scale. In the future, I can possibly, I don't know, paramedics or nurses will be able to perform those kind of surgery because it's as easy as pressing on the button.
Yeah. So like I always share throughout this entire podcast, make the job for the doctors easier.
Oh yeah.
You need them, but just make their job easier, make them more productive. And that's how I see innovation coming in. Not just to replace, disruption comes in many forms, and to help them do their job better, increase the entire value chain, better clinical outcome, patients actually gets to recover faster.
Yeah.
So this should be the way that we are doing, especially in the medical field. We always have the patient in mind. Even if it's good for the doctor, good for the hospital, but it's not good for the patient, that's something that we want to deal with. It's definitely an entire value chain. It should be affordable to the hospital, helps the doctors, and definitely brings about a lot of clinical benefit. Yeah, scalable.
Doctors right now are in so much stress. They are overworked. It's precisely because, especially at the hospitals, like as in Singapore specifically, to be able to make an appointment for a surgery, you have to schedule way in advance, and the waiting time is so long. to be able to use, and I don't look at disruption in the same way that traditionally we've been looking at come here and replace something that has already been done. You are essentially adding value to what they're doing. It's not so much about disruption. You can appreciate innovation without disruption, right?
Yeah, definitely.
The can we look at your next slide, which talks about the market right now? And obviously we talked about the sort of cancer patients, and that is a humongous size. In terms of the device market, how do you see yourself going forward in comparison to what is already available out there?
The slide that I'm showing here, we are just talking about the biopsy device market, and mainly we should look at the guidance system because that's exactly what we are doing,
Sure.
which is a 1.1 billion market by 2024. And in all this, the interesting part is only we are talking about biopsy here. And you talk
Okay.
about ablation, and you talk about many other percutaneous access. Actually, this market size for us is humongous. I would say it's way, way, way beyond what we are looking at right now.
Okay. And could you just describe to us a little bit about your business model, and how do you work? Your customers, I would assume, are the hospitals and the doctors, right? Are you
Yes.
targeting the clinics as well?
No, right now it's more of a B2B business, and we are definitely looking at hospital, less so of a clinic, but mainly hospital with imaging equipment.
Okay.
So the business model definitely includes like capital equipment, which we are
The hardware, right?
yeah the hardware. You need the robot. We are selling robots, so you need to buy the robot. You can't just buy our software. So even if you buy multiples of our system, you still definitely require the robot. The robot is the main thing.
Okay.
So we have a capital equipment, which is the robot system. We have single-use consumable because some of the components hold on to some of the needles that has to be punctured within the body. So it has to come sterile. So it's a one-time use consumables.
Yep.
And definitely we have
So
software.
disposable.
Yeah, it's a disposable.
Okay.
It's a disposable. And this is very good for the US market because we are talking about reimbursement, we are talking about the insurance. So you need to have reimbursable components, which is the consumable we are talking about here. And for software licensing, let me put it in a very nice way.
Sure.
Even though I'm saying that our disruption comes in many forms.
Mm-hmm.
Innovation definitely is the key.
Yep.
For disruption has to come in stages.
Yep.
So like I share again, don't try to change the world in a day.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a long while. It takes a lot of steps. So within our software license, you can actually license the most basic version of it, which is the automated needle targeting, which
So
is
it's
the
like a
automation.
SaaS model, right?
Yeah, size model, which we don't actually provide doctors with a lot of analysis. No. But the second tier of the software actually allows you to, based on specific anatomy, it could be the lung, it could be the kidney, it could be the liver, it could be the pancreas, it even could be brain. So that will be more targeted approach.
Yeah.
So the software is supposed to tell you how, where to puncture in order to minimize the risk of complication. And that's where we want to actually not just add value, make doctors better. We are actually trying to sort of improve the entire ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean the
medical field.
data is valuable, right?
The data is definitely
you're
valuable.
aggregating all of that data across
Yes,
different
yes, yes.
hospitals around the world.
Yeah.
Especially if once they use the software, they would be able to extract what is very specifically targeted, not just within
Correct.
their organization, but across all
Yes,
of the similar
yes.
type of problems.
And even in the last tier of the software licensing, we are going to add in, which we focus a lot more on right now, is the AI element of it, which I wouldn't say that we are better than doctors at this current stage, but definitely can give them an additional sort of view, whether this is the right approach to go. And interestingly enough, when I speak to many doctors, it becomes a training tool. It becomes a training tool for junior surgeons to learn more complex puncture, because we give advice, this is the way. Okay, then they will try to understand why does the AI or why does the computer think that this is the best method to do the puncture as well. So eventually, because we mimic or we try to replicate what the best doctor will be doing, and it can cut across the entire world. It's not just about Singapore.
Can I just say that you are also, by allowing the sort of junior surgeons to be able to learn what you guys are doing, it enables them to solve other problems that this particular machine might not have been completely designed initially for. but eventually will evolve into that kind of, and we see a lot of those cross-pollination strategies because they've been opened up to more junior, sort of more ambitious, and some of them are, because they're surgeons, they also have a little bit of business sense, so they will be able to identify opportunities that will come back to you and say, hey, let's explore if we can do more with this machine.
Yeah, definitely. That's how we actually started. I mean, I'm gonna give it all. I mean,
You're gonna go rogue.
Yeah, we started off with we actually started off the entire project or the company with Dr. Tan,
Yeah.
which is one of our key, which is our chief medical officer right now. He's in private practice.
Yep.
We work with him on sort of puncturing the kidney, and after he invested, he told us, hey, you know what? This platform is actually quite good. It's a platform. It's not a single indication device. You actually can work with the orthopedics. You can actually work with the brain surgeons. You can work with many other kind of
eye.
Yeah. Even,
I mean, you have to be so precise
Yeah.
with eye surgery.
less of eye right now, but eventually we can go
At
into that
some
because we are
point,
looking at some point of time. But there's so much possibility with your robotic system. It's like, oh, okay. Suddenly we got the aha moment.
Yeah.
And he started to connect us to a lot of other different specialties, and we start to talk to doctors, and that's how we sort of cross-pollinate the
So
ideas.
Dr. Tan was what, your investor, or
Yeah.
was he your advisor initially?
No, he was our clinical PI.
Okay, clinical PI.
Clinical principal investigator. So he works on us together on the particular project. He
Yeah.
helps us do our animal trial and clinical trial. So
Yeah.
he's the one that is performing the surgery on hand, and we are like observing how he do it. And yeah, occasionally after he do the animal trial, we were like, okay, he's going back. That's so we start to perform it ourselves.
And he invested in a company himself at the early stage. I always say that your first investors, or early stage investors, are your visionaries, right? And clearly he was one of the persons that could see this potential of scaling the technology into across different type of segments.
Yes and no. I mean, of course,
No,
the ideal part is that doctor can, if let's say all doctors or all the high net worth individual or all the VC can immediately see the use case, and they will definitely put money in. For Dr. Tan itself, we actually have very good working relationship. And
that's important.
my statement to other startups would be like, you have to prove yourself.
Yeah.
You have to prove whatever your technology your ideas could be translated. You have to prove whatever you design, whatever you visualize could be into actual practice. So it's only after a couple of animal trial and after a few iteration of to and fro, giving us the problem statement, this is the way we perform it, and we replicate through using the robotic system, is where we, the breakthrough comes about, and we see a lot more application that is coming in. So it has to come stage by stage. It's very difficult to sell a very big idea.
Yeah. But investors, I think, at some stage, especially investors that have no familiarity with the medtech area, and they're interested because it's something that is solving real world, saving lives, right? Sure. But you also want to see how you will be able to scale into other industries that could be applicable to the investors that potentially could use them in their business. For instance, there are a lot of precision targeted approach sort of strategies for other industries, such as, I don't know, for analyzing some of the in the labs, right? In the study labs, they are looking at stem cells. That is not necessarily so much for surgery, but for research. Cutting the right way, cutting that accuracy of cutting right now, a lot of it is still done by hand.
Yes, I mean there's definitely
in the future.
there's the world is your playground. I mean there's so much more possibility that you can do. But as of a startup, as what we do, and based on our vision, based on what we really love to do, I mean we have to stay focused in the medical field. Okay. If we are developing surgical robotics, and surgical robotics is the way we're going to do about it. Everything we do or we develop will be more surgical based.
Yeah. And it's big enough of a market. You're solving a really big problem there.
Yeah, I'm not going to solve the world's problem. I mean, I'm just going to be focused in terms of what we are developing. So long as the hospital use it, so long as we really prove some clinical validation that we are really very helpful, I mean, that will be most appropriate. And like you mentioned clearly, we haven't even reached the you know,
The tip of the
yeah,
iceberg.
literally, there's so much more things that we actually can do. And
Yeah.
the more surgeons, the more specialties that we met with, we realize that it opens up more door to the application that we are targeting.
Absolutely.
So in the near future or in the next 5 years, we're just going to do what we are doing
Yeah.
much better, and we're going to be more value to the doctors.
Perfecting that.
We are going to perfect where
Yeah.
we are developing, and that's my commitment to my investors and to the doctors who believe in us as well.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, initially we thought we are probably just we are developing for a very small subset of the medical field.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, like I mentioned just now, many other indication that could be worked on. And interestingly enough, we understand that different countries perform very differently. And right now, I can share with you, we have clinical interest from the US.
Yeah.
We have some doctors that are already in discussion that is going to work with us. We have doctors in Japan that's already signed MOU with us. We have doctors in Malaysia, in Myanmar, in India. Wow, in China as well. There's a couple of doctors in China. And Singapore is definitely one of our base whereby most of the doctors that we are already working with. So what we are solving is not just focusing on a US problem or a China problem. It's going to be a global, it's going to be worldwide. So the market is definitely huge enough for us to be in.
Absolutely. So you touched on a couple countries in terms of your distribution sort of flags, right? And those are currently the ones that are already collaborating with you.
Yes.
Especially when you are able to go across to other continents. That is where you'll be able to gain a much bigger sort of customer base. How often do you travel to those countries these days? Do you have to go there and represent and speak to the hospitals yourself as well?
Yeah, we speak directly to the clinician. I would say, as the CEO of the company, interestingly enough, for the last 2 years, I fly more than the rest of my life.
Wow.
Seriously, it's like almost every month I'm traveling to.
Did you keep the
country. No, we travel budget. So yeah,
I travel budget.
We don't get the luxury of getting a lot of KrisFlyer miles or something like that. But very interestingly, I mean, when you visit different hospitals, you see different approaches, different kind of hospitals. Some are like still using CRT monitors. Some are using the state of the art. So irregardless of how the hospital are doing, there's a way we can work with them. And
actually, I'm curious on that point. How is adoption taking place? Because like you said, right, hospitals are probably one of the slowest in terms of adopting technology, and replacing all of that infrastructure is extremely expensive, especially if you're doing hardware devices. It means that they need to either get rid of those or put it somewhere and bring in new device. What are some of the challenges that you've seen, and how is adoption in this space?
So far, I make a little bit of a clarification and correction there. Yeah. For the last 5 years, we have seen innovation going at a very fast speed as well, especially in Singapore. All your local hospital, all the 3 cluster that we're looking at, which is the NHG, the SingHealth, and the NUH site. I mean, they are doing a lot of innovation.
Yeah.
I mean,
Singapore is very, very
Singapore is very, even for foreign countries like China or other parts of the world, a lot of people are looking at innovation. A lot of people are looking for robotic system or the latest state-of-the-art innovation. But what you correctly point out is that mass adoption could be slightly slower. But interest in innovation and using the latest technology to solve a clinical problem is definitely there. So the market is almost ready for us to sort of disrupt.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, yes, they are slow. They are slow to mass adopt, literally for the benefit of patient.
Is the education process hard?
I
mean, more on the technology front, because obviously your technology is not that hard to understand. If a reporter could perform the surgery, it's not that rocket science. But the education in terms of the value from the economics point of view, as well as from the efficiency point of view, is that hard to cut across?
No, most of the doctors that we're working with, they have conferences. They always come together as an entire group worldwide to look at the latest art, how people from different parts of the world are performing surgery in a much better way. So the latest gig, the latest tech that they are using, they do a lot of live demo
Yep.
of surgery.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, the whole medical field, I think is very interesting. Everybody is very excited about what's latest, how can I do my job better. But in terms of, like I mentioned, the adoption is slow because of they are trying to safeguards. So mainly the roadblock that we are facing is more from the regulatory standpoint. Doctors are more than willing. Let me try it. I mean, I want to use the latest to bring out benefit to my patient. I see immediately what is the risk that I'm going to take.
Yep.
Because I'm responsible for everything, and I want to use the latest tech because this can really help me. But it's the regulatory standpoint. They are trying to understand what the technology is. But unfortunately, the regulators, most of them are not doctors.
Yeah.
They see the value much slower. They want you to do a lot of trial, like wow. When you do 10 trials, they will ask you, why not you conduct 100 trials?
Yeah.
Why not you get it safer before we use it on
Another
our patient?
country, another place.
Yeah,
I wanna
that's
see
right.
more records.
And it's like, how long do you expect me to do this? Like 10 years before we can actually put this on the clinical practice? But the doctors are the one that's excited. Just pass it to me tomorrow. I want to use it.
Yeah,
So
just give it to me.
You see the main difference is not the doctors. The doctors easily understand what they need.
Yeah.
Because they are the user.
I
They understand
understand
technology
that.
as well.
It's the
Yeah.
same thing across other industries as well. In banking, for example, where I spent a lot of years, it's the same thing. You deploy a new sort of technology into financial institutions, and you wanna try to convince that this is actually going to help them get more value, and it always comes to the point where regulators and the private sector, right, have to come to a agreement point, and that is where things get a little bit messy. I could totally understand how in the medical field that could be a little bit messy as well.
Yeah. And surprisingly, because all the risks are taken by the doctors, mainly
Yeah.
because they are the final say whether they want to use or perform or use any form of technology. Regulators are there to make sure everything is safe. I mean, gone through certain processes. I think my advice or my words to the regulators is sometimes if you want to change the world or you want to improve productivity,
Yeah.
you need to take a leap of faith.
Well, Singapore is really that forward looking. One of the the regulators in Singapore going to taking that leap of faith is a lot faster than a lot of the other countries.
Yes and no, but there are faster ones.
Yeah.
Like in the US or in the EU countries, I think it's a little bit more mainstream. They are more like they are the main say or the key opinion regulators in the world. So long as today our medical device is FDA or CE certified,
Yep.
HSA wouldn't have an issue. So far, we have not seen HSA sort of very willingly approve something that is not CE or not 510K FDA approved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you? Is that the main challenge? What are your challenges in terms of is it getting the regulators to approve for your customers to use the machine? Is that a big hurdle to jump at this current moment? Do you have other challenges beyond that?
I think for all medical device, clinical validation or the clinical trials, all this is one of the biggest hurdle that everyone will face.
Absolutely.
So far, we have mapped out the entire scene and we know exactly what we are doing. We are already conducting some of the clinical trials within the region. And eventually, like by end of this year, we should be completing our trials and starting our registration process by early first quarter of next year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the other challenge that we might face or we may face is the sort of the selling price.
Selling
In terms of
price.
how much should we market our product for. I mean, there's a very different, very diverse kind of school of thoughts. If you're speaking to the US
Yeah.
counterparts, they will expect, you have to sell expensive.
Premium.
Yeah, premium. We are the premium. We are the mass of the
Yeah.
medical field. But if you go to China, it's like, you have to sell cheap, else nobody will be buying from you. But I'm not saying that China cannot afford it. China can afford it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, but in order for you to be within a certain set of medical device that they can literally just purchase off the shelf, you have to sell below a certain pricing. So in a sense, we do get a discrepancy of how things are being sold. If let's say you are doing a consumable product, you are selling to consumables, you're selling to consumers, sorry. In actual fact, you can have a certain pricing.
Yeah.
Probably across the region, you slightly differs based on the currency exchange or you can make some premium based on logistics or whatsoever. But in the medical field, it varies very drastically. Same items could be selling at this current price, and when you go to another region, you could be selling five
Oh
times
yeah,
the particular price because of regulators, because of
subsidies and
subsidies,
yeah,
because of whether they have reimbursement policy or whether is it direct cost to
absolutely.
the patient. So this is some of the complication that we
Not
see
just
for the market.
device. We've seen that in the
Yeah,
biopharma area. You know, a lot of the drugs that you
yeah,
can purchase across different countries have different prices
yes,
for
yes.
various reasons, different barriers, different regulations, different taxes. And devices, I would think, is far more complex because then you actually have to work with the B2B as opposed to doing the so clear cut B2C market.
Yeah, definitely. So it will be always good to work with our local partners. I mean, they
Yeah.
are the ones who are very familiar with how to, maneuver within the whole
Yeah.
regulatory
Transfer the
standpoint,
risk to them.
yes, in a way transfer the risk, but in another way, I will say, they are the best person to know what is
Absolutely.
good and what to be done,
Yeah.
because you don't want to be selling a device, especially for a medical device, and you sort of flunk some of the laws or regulation within that country itself and
No.
get yourself into trouble. So the best thing is still work with the local partners.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've got one more question, and this has been really exciting because I could talk about your technology all day. What is the at this current stage you're looking to raise? Is that right? You're on a raise. You're looking to raise. Are you a Series A at the moment?
Yes, we are at Series A. We managed to close our seed quite far back in the past.
Yeah.
So right now we are raising our Series A to sort of commercialize the product. Like I mentioned, clinical trial is almost going to be completed. We are raising to go to the US. We are raising to go to the China. So a large part of the funding that we are raising right now is for commercialization
Yeah.
and regulatory approval.
Yeah.
Less of the clinical trial. Clinical trial side is already covered.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
And
definitely interesting.
and it's also value to your investors, right? Because once
Yeah.
you start to expand out overseas, then naturally their
Yeah.
shares valuation will go up.
And yes, because definitely as you just now mentioned, whether am I raising? I
Mm.
mean, the interesting part and the scary part is I'm always raising.
Oh, CEOs should always be
Yeah,
raising. The
always raising.
founder always.
There's
You should always
no.
be hiring and should always be raising.
Yeah, I'm always raising, not because we always need money or we always are short of money. No. I mean,
No.
we are at a very good standing right now because some of our backers are institutional backers and they are pretty good. I mean, they help us a lot. We bootstrap a lot. We don't spend a lot of money in that sense. But why we are raising? Because for the medical field, we need to work with strategic partners. We need smart money to come in.
Absolutely.
So I'm always looking for VCs. What other than money can you bring onto the table? Whether you have hospital connections, whether you have like tons
You
of
have
clinician,
experience
you have
before.
experience
Yeah.
for medical device,
Yeah.
you know someone from the regulators that you can sort of help us bridge or advise us on.
Oh yeah, that's so
what is the thing.
important.
So to me, in the medical field, it's more about the smart money. So why am I raising?
The color of money. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not just raising money. I'm raising resources, networks,
Yep.
partners that I
Yep.
can bring together.
So can you share with us how much you're raising?
We are raising moderately. We are just raising about 6 million Sing.
Oh, that's reasonable.
For the time being.
Yeah, I mean for your machine, like even in the US, when we look at medical equipment, they throw in very large numbers, but I think being raised enough to take you to the next level, and then look at later stages will be a lot more valuable as well for your investors in the long run.
Yes, definitely, because we are raising a small round right now. If you invest right now, definitely the jump, the number of X or number of times that you can get profit from is definitely going to be much better rather than I raise a big round with a big valuation and
And suddenly you
Yeah.
dilute everybody's.
yeah, that's right. So we rather raise sufficiently for us to go to the next phase, because every phase that I raised, the
Yeah.
next one will be sort of like very, very nice, because we raise according to stage.
Yeah.
We don't raise according to when we need money. We
Yeah.
raise like when we finish our animal trial. We raise when we're going to finish our clinical trial. We're going to raise once we, like right now I'm raising to get the CE certification. So after FDA CE, once I got all the regulatory approval, then we might raise again for the market access, for
But
global.
obviously at a different
market launch.
valuation by then,
Yeah.
and it will be fair to your earlier investors.
Yeah.
So
That's why it's clearer, it's more cleaner to see, okay, based on this phase he's raising this money for. So right now we give more assurance rather than within the same phase of, let's say, clinical trial, some companies might raise a couple of times. just to bridge the gap. But no, we are looking at literally using this money to cross a certain phase, and you are rest assured that there will be a valuation jump when we cross over to the next phase or when we raise the next round.
That is a wise advice for any startup who is looking to raise. We often get questions. I'm going to go out, I'm going to raise like 50% of my valuation. And I'm like, why? Like, why would you do that? And to be able to break it into steps, raise just enough, or if you can bootstrap your way until you can deliver better valuation for your early investors, that is always very, very important. Obviously, you can't run out of cash before you can reach your next raise, right? But
Right.
just raise enough, and that is just too much money is a problem as well.
Yes, definitely. I totally agree with you.
We've seen startups collapse holding too much money.
Yeah, like I mentioned, if you want to change the world, it doesn't happen in one single day.
Yeah.
If you break it down in steps, it helps you and it helps your team to sort of be more focused. As well, it helps your investors to stage your progress as well, and they can stand by the reserve sums to follow on your round as well.
This has been a fascinating chat, Alan. And I would love to bring you back on the show in a couple of months' time to see how your progress has been, especially with the raise and the expansion plans. I have one last question.
Sure.
If our listeners and our audience want to reach out to you, how can they get in touch with you?
They can email me directly. If they can't find my email, they can link me up through my LinkedIn profile. And definitely, I guess, Gus, you are a very well-known person. If let's say they want to reach out to me through the program, or once they've seen this podcast, they want to reach out to me, they can always make the connection through you.
Look at the posts that I just did on LinkedIn.
Okay.
So that would be, if you want to look for Alan, that would be Alan Go, and the company is NDR Medical Technology.
Yes, definitely. I mean, the last words, I mean, I just want to sell a little bit of
Please do. Any advice?
advertisement. Not for NDR.
Yeah.
We have been sort of given a lot of grants by Enterprise Singapore, the government.
your awards.
Not just the award itself. We actually started the whole company because we have received proof of concept grant and proof of value grant, and they have helped us tremendously. So I definitely want to give my thanks to Enterprise Singapore for helping us. If without them, we wouldn't even sort of kickstart the entire thing. And secondly, we want to really thank SG Innovate because they are one of our first believer. They led the round for us so impressively. If let's say you guys are wondering whether SG Innovate would lead any round, yes, they would, but they do a lot of due diligence on you. So better make sure.
How long was the DD?
Yeah, I think we take about more than 6 months to
wow.
close to a year of discussion. But make sure you have what it takes and make sure you prepare your things before you go to SG Innovate. And NTUitive, I mean, they are our first believer as well, as well as ST Engineering, the Sparks. They have been treating us the way you can't even imagine other incubators are doing. They give us space, they give us technical expertise, they give us a lot of resource, they connect us with people.
All of that is gold for a startup.
Yeah, those are gold. Those saves you a lot of costs.
Yeah.
In terms of unnecessary steps you have to go through. So based on the particular partners that I'm talking about, do look out for them. I think they really help startup, especially deep tech startups, to have a headwind. I mean, in terms of where they are heading towards.
If we have startups that are listening to this and are interested to get a little bit more advice, can they get in touch with you and seek your advice on how to go about reaching out to those contacts?
Sure, definitely. Maybe because even for most of the incubators or the institutional investor that I just now mentioned, they are always looking for deals, but only good deals. And if it's good enough, definitely I will help to make the recommendation.
Absolutely. Alan, I could talk to you all day. So unfortunately, we are very close to the end of our show. And thank you for listening. It's been a pleasure having you, Alan, on the show. I look forward to hosting our next week's show. This is Gustavo from Asiatechpodcast.
Okay, thank you.